I'm Sydney.
And I'm Julie.
And this is Restaurant and Retail Revelations. For episode 41 of Restaurant and Retail Revelations, my co-host and I are talking with Wil Brawley, partner at Schedulefly. And as a reminder, this podcast is made possible by Revel Systems, provider of the leading cloud POS on the market.
That's right. And anyone listening closely as they tune in today may pick up on Wil's North Carolina accent. And we are very excited to chat with him about how Schedulefly's restaurant scheduling solution greatly simplifies admin work for operators.
Yes, I know simplicity is a guiding principle that Revel and Schedulefly share, and I'm eager to hear from Wil about the software's inception and the problems it helps to solve in the marketplace. Let's get to it. Here's Wil. Wil, thank you so much for joining us on the Restaurant and Retail Revelations podcast. You've got a podcast of your own, the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, in case our listeners want to check it out on their own time. And you recently hosted Revel CEO Greg Ducat. And so we are really excited to return the favor today.
Oh, well, I'm excited to be here, and I very much enjoyed talking to Greg and love his story and love what y'all are doing at Revel.
Absolutely. So to set the stage for those tuning in, if you could just explain a little bit about who you are and your role at Schedulefly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Schedulefly is a web-based restaurant employee scheduling software that we serve mostly independent restaurants. I mean, we have some groups that may have 15 to 20 locations, but most of our customers have, I think, an average of 2 or 3 locations. And we've been doing this for 16 years. And we have somewhere around 6,000 customers, and we've grown the business through word of mouth. We have a small team of 5, 3 of us own the business. And over those years, we realized that sharing our customers' stories, created really good content. It created a way for us to get to know our customers better. I personally kind of got into podcasts a long time ago before they were really much of a thing. So we started a podcast about a decade ago called Restaurant Owners Uncorked, and we've done, nearly 500 episodes now, including Greg's recently. Most of them have just been stories of our customers that own and run restaurants and just trying to capture their advice and wisdom and love for what they do. So, I spend a lot of my energy and time with Schedulefly these days on trying to create good content.
That's great. Yeah, 500 episodes. That's a goal Sydney and we're still working towards, but I like it. Something that anyone that consumes your content or visits your website are going to notice pretty quickly are that stories specifically around those people in the restaurant and hospitality industries are really a central focus for you and your team. So I'm curious, when did the power of a good story really click for you? And was there a specific story that led to this kind of aha moment in terms of sharing content through films, podcasts, written text, and all those various channels?
That's a great question. I guess it was probably around 2009 or so, a couple years into this, we had a blog, and our blog was like, hey, look, we added this new feature. And I was even bored by it. I think we were, and we knew our customers probably would be like, nobody cared. I mean, it was great to let them know about a new feature or whatever, but we just really realized, like, if our blog is going to, if it's something that we need it to be meaningful content, right? So, like, what could we put out there that people would really want to read and come back and read more? I mean, first of all, we knew early on we were only going to be adding so many features to Schedulefly because we're not a typical software company where, we've really been very, very deliberate about keeping our software super simple and super easy and super clean. And we stay in our lane. And if people need more stuff, there's lots of options. But so we said, well, what could we put on there that would be meaningful? And so I actually started calling owners of restaurants that use Schedulefly and just literally, like, with a $35 microphone attached to the USB port in my laptop and holding my iPhone up on speakerphone, I would just say, tell me your story. How did you get into this? Why do you love what you do? And very quickly, it was really clear, like, this is good content because, these folks that run these independent restaurants and do it well, I mean, like I tip my hat to this day. It's amazing to me. I couldn't do it. They have to have so many skill sets and do so many things so well and stay calm under pressure. And I just thought the content was amazing and their stories were incredible. And we realized that was good content for our blog. And then we realized, but nobody's really reading our blog anyway, because, you know, at the time we had like maybe 200 customers or something. So we actually decided to self-publish a book that was a compilation of these stories. And we had 20 different owners that we interviewed and we shared their stories, and we self-published a book called Restaurant Owners Uncorked. And I didn't know if we'd sell 5 copies like friends and family or what, but we wound up selling thousands. I think we've sold 15,000 or so copies to this day. And wound up doing a second book, Restaurant Owners Uncorked Part 2, a few years later, sort of the same concept. But to me, I like a good story. I mean, just, you know, like what gets your attention more than anything is, hey, let me tell you a story. And, you know, you got people hooked from when they're kids all the way up through adulthood. And we started coming across some really, really good stories. Sup Dogs is one that, you know, we have it on our media page. The Sup Dogs folks have it on their website. It is the most amazing story that I've come across in 16 years of doing this. And, you know, almost 500 podcast episodes and hundreds of other owner conversations. And when we found great ones like that, we've you know, tried to go in and put those on film too. I like great stories, whether it's written or film or audio. I've always enjoyed that. And, you know, fortunately, a lot of other people do too. And there's just so many restaurant people that have really unique, really interesting, compelling personalities and stories. And so the more we can share, you know, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And, you know, I think the other thing that a great story does, it's that connection point. You know, it's something where you can, even if you don't share the exact same moments, you can really empathize and identify and learn from someone else's story. And so that's a beautiful thing. Actually brings me to my next question. So one of the original connection points between Revel and Schedulefly is actually a shared client, and that's Fudpuckers. So they're a beachside bar and grill based down in Destin. And I would posit that what truly makes this restaurant unique is just they are unwaveringly dedicated to experience. That's from the food to the service to encouraging guests to sign their name on the walls of the restaurant before they leave. And I feel like service like this is really only possible when behind the scenes operations are really running smoothly, which is where you see kind of that natural synergy, that connection between Revel and Schedulefly, where simplicity is kind of a core tenet for both brands. And so I'd love to hear from you just more about how Schedulefly works to make life easier for operators.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you had asked me back in 2007, how many restaurants in 2023 would still be using pencil and paper, Excel to create a schedule, I would have said zero. There's just no chance, you know, by then. But here we are 16 years into this, and there's tens of thousands of restaurants that are using pencil and paper and Excel or something that is not a scheduling software. My daughter actually works for one right now. And, you know, what we've tried to do is just take something that often might take 3 hours, you know, of time piecing together an Excel spreadsheet, which is then either, you know, sent out as an email or copied and, you know, or printed and put on a cork board at the restaurant. And as soon as the restaurant schedule is written, the fun begins. It's going to change, and it's going to change multiple times throughout the week. People need to come in earlier than expected. We got a big table, or somebody called out, or look, it's raining, we're going to cut some folks. So it is just trying to do that manually is just massive amount of time and energy and very cumbersome. So like we'll have people that say, hey, you know, I spent 3 hours a week just making the schedule, and then all the other time during the week changing it. And now you know, it's 20 minutes to make it, and, you know, click of a button when we need to make a change. And so we've always just wanted to make it a lot easier for folks that don't have a simple way to create and manage a schedule and communicate with their staff. And it all goes back to one of the partners here at Schedulefly, Wes Aiken, co-founder here. He used to write the schedule in a restaurant, 20 years ago, and would sit down every Sunday in his apartment and try to piece this thing together, looking at, chicken scratch on the back of a ticket, like, I want Tuesday off, and like no name. And like, he'd spend all this time, and he would drive down to the restaurant and post it up on a cork board. And then people are calling in and coming in, and they're like, oh, I can't work, and it's just, and so he basically wrote a software that solved his own problem. Like, if I were still creating the schedule, this is what I want. And we just knew that was a shared problem that, tens of thousands of people that write schedules around the country and independent restaurants are dealing with. And that was the goal, was just to make that a little easier for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned early on, Wil, how much respect you have for restaurateurs in the industry. And I couldn't agree more. And I'm curious, did you have direct restaurant experience yourself before you helped conceptualize Schedulefly, like your colleague?
No, Wes wrote the schedule. I mean, I made salsa one summer, I bust tables, but I didn't. Wes knew this is a problem, and it was a big deal for me, and he knew how to write code, and he knew that, okay, well, if we could provide this simple solution, I bet a lot of people would want to do it. And the five of us here at Schedulefly, we all worked in a previous business together. So there's been five of us for 16 years. We all knew each other. We all knew kind of, what holes each one of us would fill and what our skill sets were. I'm more customer facing and more marketing and sales oriented and things like that. And I mean, I'll be very honest, I had no clue how hard it was to truly run and manage a restaurant until we started serving these folks, until I started hearing these stories. And I thought for years, I thought, God, this seems so much fun. I want to run a restaurant one day. So I'm going to learn from these folks so that I can go do it myself. And what I've learned is, no chance this guy can do that. I have profound respect for all of these people that do it well. So I never tire of hearing their stories, because I'm always just kind of shaking my head thinking, God, how do you do that? Like, how do you manage all this stuff and do it so well and do it consistently? And you've been doing it for 20 years, and how are you not burned out? And so that's where my true love and respect, particularly for the independent owners and, folks that don't have, 1,000 locations and massive economies of scale, but they've got, 5, 8, 10 locations, and they've grown it from their one, and they're trying to figure out how do they scale their culture and grow the business and all that comes with that. And I find that stuff fascinating. And so that's where my respect for this industry has matured over the years, for sure.
Yeah, it is so many details. That's really for any entrepreneur, but then especially so when you're looking at inviting hundreds of guests in every single week and then providing them food and beverage. Like, it's so many details. So I'm sure that anything that can make that a little bit easier is greatly appreciated. And I want to really make sure that we cover this. So you mentioned at the start of the episode that it's roughly 6,000 brands and restaurant locations using Schedulefly today. So do you have an estimate of just the general time savings your solution has offered to these brands? I know you mentioned like you can get it down to about a 20-minute scheduling. Do you have any kind of a metric around the average savings that a brand sees when they implement Schedulefly?
We don't, and it's probably because there's five of us and we don't run a really sophisticated operation around measuring that stuff. I mean, I can tell you that anecdotally, the things that people will say why they love Schedulefly is, one is we have not continued to add and add and add. This is almost like using Craigslist. You look at it now and it looks a lot like it did years ago. So if you've used it, you know exactly where to go, and it's really easy. But that people will say that they save hours every week on creating the schedule and communicating with their teams. A lot of our folks will plug in the pay rates, and they have, we'll tell them how much their schedule is going to cost them as a percentage of their sales forecast and things like that. So it saves them a lot on labor costs. But it runs the gamut. It's such a wide variety of, dollars and hours saved, but those are the big things. And our big thing is, we always just say, and our tagline forever was just, Schedulefly makes my life easier, because that's what people would just tell us constantly. So that's more of a nebulous gray thing, but yes, I mean, it saves a lot of time, and it saves oftentimes a lot of dollars on creating a really good, effective, cost-effective schedule. And one more thing I'd say that I've really learned is, it also is it really helps a lot of folks on, it's a piece of, not the sole piece, but as a piece of employee turnover, because this has become not just something we thought early on, this is going to save managers time and maybe labor dollars, but staff love Schedulefly too. And so, they like being somewhere where there's a tool where they can just whip their phone out and boom, I know when I'm working, I know who I'm working with. I can see anytime. I'm not having to go call in or drive in, or I'm not having to go, look at an email attachment with a spreadsheet and try to zoom in and all that kind of stuff. So, it's really turned into this nice employee benefit where our sales force literally is the staff. I mean, we don't have any salespeople. They take it from restaurant to restaurant. So when they show up somewhere and they're on Excel and calling in, they're like, just use Schedulefly. And, that really has been our sales force for all these years.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. We talk so much about saving managers and operators time, but it's about saving your staff time too. And you guys support all of these awesome restaurant brands with only 5 people on staff. And I have to ask, how are you able to do it all with such a lean team?
Simple software. And honestly, the funny thing is, we have twice as many customers as we had 7 or 8 years ago. And we have, I don't know, like a third as much customer support, because people do take it from one place to the next. Like, we've never done a demo, not one ever, of Schedulefly. People point and click their way through it. If they need something, they call us or they email us, and we respond to the email right away, or we answer the phone. A lot of times nowadays, somebody puts it in there. They're like, "Oh, my employee told us about it," and then the employee's like, "Yeah, here, you just do this." And so our support volume is so incredibly low. I still answer, if you go to the 800 number on our website and call it, it's going to come to me unless I'm traveling. I get maybe 5 phone calls a day. My personal cell phone number is right on the trial sign up page. It may be on the learn more page too. But because we've kept that software so simple and so easy to use, it's super easy to not only provide great support. We say we provide legendary customer support. Our customers love how responsive we are. But that's because we've said no 5,000 times for every time we've said yes to adding something new. And it's also because we're willing to let people move into Schedulefly. And if they get to where they have other things that they want and need, then they move along to somebody else. And there's tons of competitors that have all those other bells and whistles, and they can fight it out for all those folks. We know where our niche is, and we play well there.
Absolutely. And, we talked already about just the thousands of restaurants that are still shockingly using pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets, kind of, in today's terms, kind of archaic technology for scheduling. So even though it's a simple software, for those who are listening, what are kind of the key features available within this software that are really helping operators with scheduling challenges? And then again, to your point, helping them retain the talent because staff are seeing benefits as well.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, essentially you're going in, it's web-based, it's a subscription service. You go in, and whether you're on your iPad, your desktop, or whatever, you're creating the schedule each week. That included in there is all of your time off requests and your availability requests from your staff. And once you piece together your schedule and you post that thing, they're all going to get an email or a text or both. They have a mobile application on their phone that's, one click and they're in, and they can see when they're working. They can see who they're working with. When they want to offer up a shift, they can offer up a shift. Somebody requests to pick it up. So instead of like 25 phone calls because, Sarah is sick and now we need to find, she just punches a button, offers up the shift, and boom, somebody requests to pick it up. Manager gets alerted, this shift was offered up. This person wants to pick it up, approve or decline. You approve it, it changes the schedule, and everybody goes about. So it saves all these phone calls and kind of fire drills of just a couple of quick clicks of a button. And they also have one of our customers said it years ago, and I think it's pretty true. It's like Facebook for work, where we have a message wall in there, and this is like a 24/7 conversation where, just what's happening at the restaurant, what's going on tonight. If there's a party tonight, or there's X number of, big table reservation, whatever is happening, anything that the managers need to communicate to the team, that they can keep them all in one place, all in this nice flowing conversation. Again, just right on their phones, wherever they are. So, and the staff, of course, love that. Like I said, I mean, my daughter is having to check an email every Sunday night, which is a screenshot of an Excel spreadsheet. And then, she looks at it all the time, and she's like, and then they had to create their own, the staff create their own text strings separate of work to try to figure out, like, hey, could somebody pick up my shift? And they're all like, this is silly. And it's causing problems there. And, she's kind of, summer job between college, but she's like, I would never stay somewhere where like that. So a lot of folks, even if Excel, I used to say, if Excel works, then do what you're doing. Like, why add more software? Now I say, if it may work for you, but just be mindful of your staff. Like, what will make life easier for your staff? And maybe while the Excel spreadsheet's fine on your end, they may think, this is, not really cutting it for me, and I'd like to be somewhere where I can see everything in one place when I need to.
Sounds like you need to walk into your daughter's restaurant with a business card, Wil.
I tried. It's the only sales call I've ever made. I'm 0 for 1. I went in there and I showed them Schedulefly, and they were going to take it to the GM meeting, and I guess they didn't do it. So I don't know.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I think our end users are better salespeople. But, I think that, like, somebody will eventually go there that's used it and be like, guys, come on. So that's kind of what we're hoping for.
Well, what's coming up next for Schedulefly? Any exciting milestones, events, releases, or any just general noteworthy updates that you'd want to share with our listeners?
We're really excited about our podcast. It's growing. We're 30% growth over last year, and I spend a lot of energy on that. We've really kind of expanded it outside of just restaurant owners. That's why we had Greg on here, your CEO. We've had some other CEOs, and I just did one with the guys that wrote Hospitality DNA, great new book. So we're going to keep trying to put great content out there. We don't have, I will say this, we do not have any new products. That is, we're actually proud to say, like, we have what we have, we keep it working, we keep it simple, and we take incredible care of our customers. And it's sort of like Groundhog Day every day around here. People that like simple software and great customer service, we're an awesome fit. If you like tons and tons of bells and whistles and tons of technology, there's a lot of other, companies out there that provide that. So the good news is we've been doing it 16 years, 0 burnout, love it just as much today as we ever have. And hopefully 16 years from now, we're still doing this.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And I think there is something to be said for simplicity. It's, there's so much complexity elsewhere in the world. It's really nice when you find those moments and those ways and those avenues for keeping it simple. So kudos to your team for making that a reality for operators. And so Wil, we're reaching the end of our prepared questions for you. So on behalf of Team Revel, I would like to thank you for your partnership and for your time today. And before we close things out, I'd love to give you the opportunity to keep Julie and myself honest. If there's anything that we did not ask you that you'd like to share with our listeners, now's your time.
Oh, I think y'all ask wonderful questions. Y'all do a really good job, and that's not easy to do with 2 people. So I tip my hat. I think your podcast is great. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and just share what we're doing and reach your audience. I will say, if anybody would like to call and talk to me about Schedulefly, I'm going to give you my cell phone number right here, and you're welcome to call it or text me anytime. It's 704-906-2031. I'm in North Carolina, and I'm happy to speak with you anytime if I can do anything to help you.
Incredible. Here's hoping that results into some fresh takers for Schedulefly. That'd be amazing. So thanks again, Wil, and we will be in touch soon.
All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you.
I don't think it's often that you see a partner of a business list their personal cell phone number as the direct line for support. So Wil and his team certainly take customer service and that concept of simplicity and lean operations to the next level.
They truly do. And I have no doubt that Schedulefly clients feel that love and appreciate the thoughtfulness behind the brand's ease of use. And also, how cool that stories from the very brands they serve have inspired spin-off projects like 2 published books and even a podcast series.
As a fellow story enthusiast, I certainly appreciate that. And I love that we were able to trade podcast features in a sense, having our CEO, Greg Ducat, speak on Restaurant Owners Uncorked recently, and then now hosting Wil on Restaurant and Retail Revelations.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners who have joined us today, thank you so much for your time and attention. And as always, I encourage you to like and subscribe to Restaurant and Retail Revelations on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with fresh content and new revelations.